Today's feature is Tell Me a Creepy Story that was released August 21st, 2023. Um, Perhaps because I write a lot of short stories and I have participated in many anthologies and edited anthologies, I was all in for this. I really enjoyed the four-story format of this. Today, we probably will not have a sidebar because I'm going to spend more time than usual since there are four separate stories and I would like to touch on all of them. This collection, for lack of a better word, does not have a frame. Often, when you have film anthologies, there's usually this story frame that's laid over it that ties the stories together. That was absent in this, but to me, it was not missed. I felt that the stories were linked in terms of fit, which is the same thing when you have a written anthology and you have this sort of theme or vibe that you want to go through the entire thing and you know what stories fit. When you're watching Tell Me a Creepy Story, even though these films are not connected, there is a feeling that travels across them all that makes it seem like there's some sort of connection. One thing that the first three stories have in common is that there is little to no dialogue in them. So again, it's more of like a watching these people acting through things. They were filmed by four different directors. The directors are Samuel Daw, Felix Daubert, Stuart Graham, and Paul Holbrook. But even though there were four different directors, there was a very similar mood to all of them, and even some similar shots and setups. Again, just like with a written anthology, when you're reading the stories, and even though they're separate stories and the writers wrote them separately, there's often a vibe that carries across. And that's what happened in Tell Me a Creepy Story. So let's look at some of these stories. The first one was Hungry Joe. And this is probably the most visually disturbing of the four. I wouldn't eat while watching this. Hungry Joe is about a young couple who has a baby, and the baby has an insatiable appetite. Every time the mother unlatches the baby from the breast, the baby screams. And there is that undercurrent of mom shaming that she's not doing what comes naturally and best. You know, she's supposed to just be this earth mother who nurses the baby and everything's beautiful and she shouldn't complain. The fact that like she has to have this baby latched onto her all the time, and it's not only is it inconvenient, it's painful after a while. And we see Hungry Joe grow into a child who not only is hungry all the time, he has a stench to him, even though he bathes every day. So Hungry Joe's hunger becomes a real issue. Let's just say that. I don't want to give too much away. The thing about all four of these stories is you kind of know where they're going. You know where they're going to end up, but it's still very satisfying. So with Hungry Joe, I knew the end, but I still really enjoyed it. And I'm saying this as a person who does not eat meat. Babies do look delicious. I'm just going to say that, and I'll drop that at that. Story 2 is Myosotis, which, if you don't know what Myosotis is, it's a genus of plants, and the forget-me-not is the major part of the Myosotis. Very clever play on a title. This is a French film, but again, you wouldn't really know because there's no dialogue. I only knew because they were writing things like signs in French and I could see them. This is about a beekeeper who accidentally kills his wife and buries her in the vegetable garden. And, it doesn't disturb you as much as Hungry Joe visually, but some weird things start happening in the vegetable garden. Um, and there's a nice tension throughout that one. The third story is Red Water, and this is a really weird, super creepy. I was unnerved watching this one. This is about a young girl. She's home alone, and the sink does not work. It's nighttime, and her sink is broken. And she's trying to reach her parents to tell them, but they're not picking up. So she calls the plumber that the parents had the number for the plumber in their their junk drawer. You know how you have the business cards in there. She calls the plumber. This guy shows up and she sends him up to he goes upstairs to check the plumbing, even though the kitchen's the main area. And then minutes later, another plumber shows up and she's like, yeah, one of your guys was already here. And he says, no, I'm the only one who's sent out at night. So like, what's that guy doing? And then in the meantime, this young girl broke up with her boyfriend and now he's seeing someone else, and she's watching this on social media, like his relationship developing. So she's sort of seeing things that aren't really real. She's hyper focused on the ex, but there's also this home invasion going on at the same time. I mean, it's just really, there's a lot going on. And as I said, I was really on edge watching this because I was like, why are there two plumbers? And what happened to the first one? And where did he go? And it's creepy and it's really, really good. And that one, I would have to say that one, I kind of knew the ending, but there was some weird little things thrown in. But not everything has to have a twist ending to be satisfying, right? Story 4 is The Good Word, which had a real Flannery O'Connor vibe for me, and she's one of my favorite writers, so I really liked it. It's about a traveling preacher, and we know, those of us who are, who worship at the altar of Flannery O'Connor, irony intended, we know that preacher characters are dark and evil. He comes upon a house that belongs to a butcher and his wife. This one has a lot of dialogue and it's charming. It's very, the wife and the butcher, they're sort of rural Irish people and they have these really charming colloquial ways of speaking. And you know that the preacher's not good and he has an agenda, but the butcher and his wife seem to have an agenda as well. So I highly recommend Tell Me a Creepy Story. I think it puts the American Horror Stories to shame. It's fantastic. It's even better than old school Twilight Zone. I'm surprised that more people aren't talking about it. It's on Freebie. You don't have to pay to watch it. I fully enjoyed it. I was all in for this one. I, I could say this story was better than this one, but they were all really, really good. I enjoyed all four, which is unusual. Usually, like when I watch VHS or something like that, there's one that I really don't like. This, I thought all four were really well done.